This is a compilation of all the videos I had on this channel before I switched it to a VOD archive. So none of these are really good, but I do have a reason for putting them together. Kirby is a series that I really wish I could love. I adore Kirby Superstar Ultra, but I haven't been able to get into pretty much every other game in the series, but God, I want to. Look at this guy. He's so cute. And if you're new to me, practically all of my interests in gaming revolve around cute stuff. Or at least pink stuff, but you know, things are automatically cuter if they're pink. Most of the time. But Kirby didn't start out pink. At least he didn't in North America. Kirby used to be whiter than I am, and that's something I didn't know was possible. So, supposedly Masahiro Sakurai, the guy who created Kirby and literally nothing else, wanted Kirby to be pink, but Shigeru Miyamoto, the guy who created Nintendo, wanted him to be yellow, so when Kirby's Dream Land was sent over to the States to be localized, the localization team didn't know what the heck to do, so they just made him white instead. Luckily, this is before the localization team started saying things that made Kirby very upset on the box art, so he's still pretty happy here. Unfortunately, the marketing for this game was disgusting. Like, yeah, the game sold well and got good reviews, but they made Kirby seem really gross in the advertisements for this game in North America. This commercial is my #1 source for this claim. He just ate a guy and spit him out. Why does he have teeth? This commercial sucks. But yeah, again, the game got pretty good reviews. Masahiro Sakurai and Satoru Iwata, rest his soul, designed the game to be easy to get into for newcomers to action games, while also adding some stuff for people who've played before, like a harder New Game Plus mode and options to decide how many lives you start with at the beginning of the game. The main criticisms people had were that the game was too short and too easy, although there is the aforementioned New Game Plus for the second one. But yeah, the game is really short, which is why I've decided that this is a good place to start getting into the non-Superstar Ultra Kirby series. Kirby's Dream Land is kind of familiar to me already because I've played Superstar Ultra so many times. Spring Breeze in that game is kind of a summarized version of Kirby's Dream Land, and Revenge of the King is practically just Kirby's Dream Land but with harder enemies and a more fleshed out story. I think maybe I played this game once before besides Superstar Ultra as well, but if I did, I certainly don't remember it. I have the memory of a goldfish, but worse. The game's plot is as follows. King Dedede stole all the food in Dreamland. Chase King Dedede and beat him up. That's it. It's really simple. Let's play the game now. Even just this title screen is adorable. Just a bunch of dumb-looking blobs jumping around the title screen doing a bunch of different cute actions. I love this game already because of this title screen alone. The game starts you off in green greens. Man, for a stage called Green Greens, things sure look pink and gray. Kirby controls really nicely in this game. He can't run, but his walking speed is pretty fast. He can jump, and he can also make the game extremely easy because he literally has the ability to float infinitely. Just hold up on the D-pad and he never stops floating. I didn't abuse this in my playthrough mostly because I forgot. Something notable about Kirby in this game is that he doesn't have copy abilities. He can still eat enemies alive, but he can't steal their powers like he can in practically every single subsequent Kirby game. This means a lot of the variety you generally find in a Kirby game that makes it worth playing just isn't here. However, that doesn't really matter much because the game is short enough that you don't realize how little variety in the gameplay there really is until you've already beaten it. The first boss is Wispy Woods, and he sure exists. You just have to eat his apples and spit them back out at him. His only attack other than making apples fall is literally breathing on you, which is extremely easy to avoid. Something that's always bothered me about Wispy Woods is how sad he looks after you beat him. Look at his face. He looks like he just witnessed a puppy's death. I'm not supposed to feel bad for defeating a bad guy, Nintendo, but whatever. Who cares about that? Kirby dances on Wispy Woods' grave and heads off for the next level on a Warp Star. Castle Lololo is next, and there's not anything that significant about this level other than the fact that the Phantom masks from Mario 2 show up. You also get the microphone ability at the beginning of the game, so I guess there are technically some copy abilities. The boss at the end of the level is Lololo and Lalala, and this boss is pretty alright. You have to take the boxes they're pushing and shoot them back at them. They both take 3 hits to defeat, but it's pretty easy to get hit from behind if you're not near an area where you can change levels. Why does getting hit by a box even hurt Kirby? They're literally just pushing them at the same speed Kirby walks. That shouldn't hurt, it should just push him with it, right? After that is Float Islands, which is also alright. There's once again nothing really significant, although you do get the spicy curry power-up in a boss fight against a blimp where you get infinite floating and more powerful attacks. This blimp was really difficult on my first attempt where I lost my first life of the playthrough, but I had a flawless victory on my second attempt, and that's what really counts, I think. I much prefer the fight against Kabula in Superstar Ultra, though. Bubbly Clouds. This is where this game is actually difficult to me. The level itself is fine, the platforming is simple, and the enemy placement is fine. The issue is the bosses. First, the mini-boss, Krako Jr., who is honestly the hardest boss in the game. There's so much going on that you have to avoid, and it's so easy to get hit multiple times if your reaction times are as terrible as mine. Eventually, after much struggle, I defeated him. Luckily, the boss at the very end of the level, Krako, is easier, but not by much. I didn't realize during this fight that you can avoid practically all of Krako's attacks just by floating above him, so I died a few times before finally actually defeating him. That was frustrating, but now we're on to the final level, Mount DDD. Mount DDD is a boss rush followed by the final fight with King DDD, kinda. There are 4 mini-levels leading up to the 4 bosses you've fought up to this point, and the bosses are literally exactly the same, which means yes, this is where I finally learned how to make Krako easy. After defeating all of the bosses again, it's time to fight King DDD. This fight is all about dodging DDD's attacks and absorbing stars to spit out at him when he lands from a big jump. The fight's not very hard, but it can get frustrating if you're on 0 lives like I was. Upon defeating King DDD, he screeches really loudly and disappears from the ring. Kirby dances and turns into a balloon, lifting the castle and dropping food all over Dreamland. The credits roll, and the person who I think deserves the most credit for this game is Bubby. And Masa Sakurai, but mostly Bubby. Who's Bubby? I don't know, but I love that they've been credited as Bubby. Bye-bye. This is also where you unlock the harder mode, but I'm not touching that. Krako apparently becomes even more stressful in hard mode, and I can't take that. So yeah, that was Kirby's Dream Land. It's definitely a good game, but I don't think it's something I'd go out of my way to play again. Maybe someday I'll tackle another Kirby game for this channel, but for now I think I've done enough sucking for one video. Mario Sunshine is one of my favorite games of all time. I grew up playing it with my older brother and never being able to get past the 6th episode of Bianco Hills. I have such fond memories of this game because of how often I play it. I come back to play this game at least once a year. It even ended up being my first Let's Play that I ever 100% completed. There's so much to love about this game, especially since I really don't like Mario 64. Mario Sunshine takes all the things I don't like about 64 and makes them way better. I could talk about this game for hours without getting bored, just ask Obsolete and Misty. Whenever we get the Delfino Plaza stage in Smash Ultimate, I point out every single inconsistency I can see between the stage and the original game. Sorry about that, guys. I know that's annoying. And now, a message from our sponsor.
So there's this one time when I had surgery in my mouth, right? And it was really painful, and at the very end, the numbing wore off, and I had to endure like a good 20 minutes of them just slicing my mouth open. No anesthetics or anything. I would rather go through that again than have Winter point out every single inconsistency between Delfino Plaza and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Mario Sunshine.
The game starts with a bang, literally. It starts with a plane crash. Mario, Peach, Toadsworth, and all the Toads are all going to Isle Delfino on vacation, but the airstrip is covered in this
icky paint-like goop. It's moving!
No, boys, don't touch that stuff.
Everyone around the airstrip is convinced that Mario is the one who covered the island, despite the fact that he literally just got off the plane. So Mario conveniently finds this water pump named Flood. Flood is also a jetpack, and a rocket, and a Pegasus boots. Mario cleans the mess and kills the Proto-Piranha in the center of all of it, and then gets arrested. He gets put on trial and found guilty of polluting literally the entire country, causing the guardian deities of Isle Delfino, the Shine Sprites, to flee from the Shine Gate. He literally doesn't even get a lawyer. He gets Peach and Toadsworth, sure, but as soon as they raise an objection, they're overruled before they get to voice it. This is somehow worse than the Ace Attorney court system. Mario's sentence is to clean the graffiti all around the island. He kills another proto-piranha in Delfino Plaza, then Peach is kidnapped by a shadowy figure that looks like Mario named Shadow Mario. Mario saves Peach, Shadow Mario disappears into magic graffiti that takes him to Bianco Hills, and Mario follows him. So this is where the game gives you a bit more freedom. The first mission of Bianco Hills is to kill yet another proto-piranha, but that's actually the one and only skippable non-episode 8 mission in the entire game. Nothing happens in the plot other than unlocking Rico Harbor and Gelato Beach until 10 shine sprites, so I'll just talk about the gameplay here. Mario controls better in this game than he ever has before or since, in my opinion. The controls are extremely fluid, pun 100% intended, and responsive. I have issues with some part of the controls in every Mario game other than Mario Sunshine. 64 is too slippery, and it's too difficult to do wall jumps. Galaxy is too floaty, although it's forgivable since the game is designed around that fact. 3D Land and World don't have Mario jumping high enough, although it's forgivable since the game is designed around that fact. Odyssey's movement is just off to me. I know a lot of people love the way Mario Odyssey controls, and I get it, I really do, but it just doesn't feel right to me. Mario Sunshine, though, got the controls just right. Mario jumps a reasonable height without being too low or too high. Wall jumps are easy, which makes for quick and spontaneous platforming. The spin jump allows for extra distance out of a jump, slides allow for a quick way to get around. Sure, there's no long jump, but Flood more than makes up for that. Flood works as a natural extension of Mario's moveset in a beautiful way. I've heard people complain that he makes the game too easy, but that's a stupid complaint for dumb angry babies. Go back to the corner now. The game design is built almost entirely around the fact that Mario now has a jetpack. There are certain things to do around the game world that require you to get certain nozzles for Flood. Even Yoshi's in this game, and his moveset is just as responsive and fun as Mario's. He's essentially just a fourth nozzle. Flood really adds to this game because everything in the game world is built around it. There's graffiti everywhere that, when sprayed, reveals a blue coin, collectibles that can be traded in for shine sprites. If these beavers have 24 of the 120 shine sprites, why aren't the police raiding their home? They have a good chunk of this island's gods being held captive for a ransom of 10 blue coins each, and let me tell you, some of these coins are not easy to find. Mario Sunshine also has beautiful worlds and level design that fit said world's themes. Bianco Hills is open but focused, like a better or at least more refined take on Bob-omb Battlefield from 64. Rico Harbor has you walking along the scaffolding above the harbor in some missions and fighting a giant squid in two. Noki Bay has you investigating what's causing the water in the bay to become so polluted, only to find out that it was because a giant eel has issues with dental hygiene. Every world tells its own story, and that makes them significantly more interesting than the 48 different water levels in Mario 64. I honestly prefer having a lesser amount of worlds if it means they'll be as beautiful and interesting as the ones in Sunshine. Anyway, enough gushing about how perfect this game's gameplay is. Once you get 10 shines, Shadow Mario kidnaps Peach again and flees towards Pina Park, the fourth world in the game. Mario gives chase, but Shadow Mario unleashes a giant robot Bowser. And so Moses said unto the Egyptians, "Let my people go, lest I shall part these red seas." Mario gets on a roller coaster to fight it using rockets, and once he defeats it, Shadow Mario reveals himself to be Bowser Jr.
Leave my mama alone, you bad man. I won't let you take Mama Peach away.
So Bowser lied to Bowser Jr., saying that Princess Peach is his mother and Mario kidnapped her a long time ago because that makes sense. He also explains that his paintbrush was given to him by Professor Egad from Luigi's Mansion, who also invented Flood based on the design on his back. I like that they're connecting these two games that otherwise have literally nothing tying them together. Bowser Jr. takes Peach with him to Corona Mountain, leaving Mario to collect the 7 required shines from every world in order to reach the inside of the mountain that's blocked off by this impenetrable rickety old wooden fence. Before I skip straight to that, though, I want to talk about more gameplay-related stuff, most notably my favorite and least favorite levels. My favorite mission in the game is by far the boss of Tricky Ruins in Noki Bay. Sure, it recycles Gooper Blooper for the 3rd time, but the concept of exploring these ancient ruins in Noki Bay is super cool, and so is the fact that the shine is located in the tomb of an ancient Noki king. My least favorite mission has a lot of levels tying. Lily Pads of Death is garbage. You have to control a lily pad while collecting all 8 red coins, but if you hit the water, you die. And if you miss a red coin, you have to painstakingly walk along the edge all the way back to the beginning just to get a second chance at getting any coins you missed. Secret of the Village Underside is also terrible for 3 words.
I'm a chuckster!
I used to hate the Watermelon Festival, but I actually had a pretty easy time with it thanks to my genius angling of my shot. Everybody seems to hate Pachinko too, and I'll concede that it's technically really bad level design. But again, I just didn't have that much trouble with it. I had a surprisingly easy time with most of the levels I generally used to struggle with, honestly. A lot of people don't like that it's required to defeat Shadow Mario in every world to unlock the final level, but I personally really like that about the game. It gives a sense of focus and you always know what you're supposed to be doing because of it. Mario 64 was more open in this sense, where you could basically completely ignore a world and still get to the final level. I quite like that you have to go to every world in Sunshine though, because every world is interesting and fun to explore, unlike Mario 64. The stories of the worlds are fun, and it's nice to see the resolutions your actions have brought to them in the 8th episodes. Except for the Watermelon Festival, that one's just bad. After collecting the 7 required shines from every world, Delfino Plaza is flooded. I don't know if this was just convenient timing or if Bowser Jr. somehow caused it, but he runs into Corona Mountain, which is no longer blocked by the gate. Once you enter, you'll see that this level looks pretty good from the start. There's some tricky flood-related platforming with tons of insta-death all over the place, but it feels fair and challenging. However, the platforming soon ends and you're forced to use a mud boat to reach the final platform. Mud boats in this game are terrible. Their controls are okay once you get used to them, but they control like real boats would, and that's extremely annoying. The boat also breaks as soon as you hit anything, forcing you to fall into the water. This is actually water with goop in it, by the way, and you die instantly if you fall into it. After reaching the final platform, you have to use the rocket nozzle to jump onto these conveniently solid clouds until finally we reach the final boss, and it's Bowser, but with a twist. So the goal in this fight is to use the rocket nozzle to slam into these platforms at the end of Bowser's giant bathtub. Flood gets more and more damaged as you do, and eventually the bathtub falls, with everyone falling from the sky. Mario and Peach land on an island, and Mario is forced to bear witness to Flood actually legitimately dying, after all they went through together. The townsfolk all celebrate the return of the Shine Sprites, and Bowser tells Jr. that Peach isn't really his mom. But surprise, Bowser Jr. knew all along, and was just playing along with Bowser's scheme anyway. A little brat. After that, Mario and Peach are relaxing in front of a hotel in Serena Beach when the Toads show up with a newly repaired Flood.
The vacation starts now.
Then the credits. But, I 100%ed this game, so what's our reward? It's a postcard. It's a postcard that isn't even in the correct aspect ratio. That's the only thing you get for 100% completing Mario Sunshine. It's one of the worst completion bonuses I've ever seen, and this game is not worth completing. Super Mario Sunshine is one of my all-time favorite games, and it, in my opinion, is the best 3D Mario game. The setting is fantastic, the level design is fantastic, Mario controls wonderfully, and despite a few bugs, the game holds up really well to this day. I'd honestly love if this game got a re-release for the Switch. It definitely deserves it the most out of any of the 3D Marios.
If you ever wondered what the deal with a business partnership is, well, me either, but that's what I have to make a video about. The definition is a business organization owned by 2 or more persons who agree on a specific division of responsibilities and profits, which essentially means the 2 owners have to come up with a fair way to split their responsibilities and profits. Go figure, a definition that doesn't need expanding upon. Since there's no partnership agreement required, it's pretty easy to start a partnership, though experts recommend you have a lawyer make something called Articles of Partnership, or, in other words, a partnership agreement. That's essentially just so you know where you stand and who has to do what, so nobody can just skip out on their part of the job. Mario Bros. Didn't have a partnership agreement, and look where that got him. Luigi's out all the time cleaning out haunted mansions of any ghost to earn a living, and what does Mario do? He parties, goes on vacation, participates in the Olympics with an anthropomorphic blue hedgehog, pretends to be a doctor, travels overseas to rescue a princess who isn't Peach, meaning he literally just went overseas to save somebody to cheat on his girlfriend with, and that's not even half of it, and that's all just because they were too lazy to hire a lawyer. Partnerships also aren't subject to any special taxes, although individual partners still have to pay taxes on their share of all the total income, but they're paying less than some specialized companies, so that's just great. There's also the fact that each partner has their own assets, which makes it easier for a firm to borrow money for expansions or new operations. That's great because partnerships can try new things pretty easily, which leads to new products or services. It's not all great though. Unfortunately, partnerships that aren't LLPs, that's limited liability partnership for all you non-partnership project people, are subject to unlimited liability, meaning if one branch messes something up, the entire company suffers. This was exemplified when Yoshi committed tax fraud, which resulted in his orphanage, which was shared with like 7 other Yoshis, suffering heavy losses. There's also the obvious risk of a conflict between partners. This is obviously a risk in any type of partnership, not just a business one, but there's more at stake here than there is when a couple of cards start hating each other. Conflict can do many things to a business depending on the severity. Just look what happened to Mike and Ike back in 2012. This loving couple broke up and continually defaced their own boxes of candy just to spite each other, and that's potentially the least severe these conflicts can get. As a result of conflicts, one partner might leave the business altogether. This is obviously extremely expensive and can very easily result in the total closure of the business if the remaining owner can't keep things together on his or her own. Luckily, Mike and Ike were both relatively competent when it came to their conflicts, so things stayed together. Eventually, they got back together and even got married. So what's the moral of this story? Mike and Ike are the OTP of the century, and nobody can convince me otherwise. Also, that partnerships are a business structure that have as many advantages as they do disadvantages, and that running things with a partner doesn't necessarily guarantee it'll be easier. The end. Alright everybody, we've gone a good 4 videos on this channel with very little success. Normally that means the higher-ups would shut us down, but I've got a better idea. WinterStar 2. This time we cover video games, but we don't finish off the game with a video about business partnerships and an unlisted parody of Scott the Woz. Sequels are really a mixed bag in the gaming industry. Sure, there are always those standout sequels that improve everything from the original game, but a lot of the time they just lead to immense amounts of disappointment. However, if you're like me and you end up falling in love with the majority of games you ever play, you're bound to want a sequel to them. And god, are there a lot of sequels I want, so this video will be talking about that. Now, keep in mind that just because I bring up a potential sequel here doesn't mean that I think it's likely. A lot of sequels I want are unrealistic or wouldn't make financial sense for developers to make, but that doesn't mean I don't want them. I love Mario Sunshine, by far one of, if not the best 3D platformer ever made. Flood was a unique concept that allowed for some awesome level design, and Mario controls better in it than he ever has before or since. However, the game is far from perfect. The game is bogged down by a ton of minor bugs and some absurdly boring collectathons. Seriously, I don't think I've ever met a single person who doesn't eventually get bored of searching for all the blue coins. There are also a few levels that really stand out as being terrible. Pachinko, Lily Pads of Death, and the Watermelon Festival come to mind. I imagine a sequel to this game taking the mechanics and controls of the first game and putting them in a world on the scale of Super Mario Odyssey. Large, sprawling environments covered in goop for Mario to clean and shine sprites to obtain, preferably set in a different location than Isle Delfino to differentiate it. Or at least just add Delfino Plaza to Super Mario Odyssey. Come on, Nintendo, fans have done it, so can you. Pokemon is one of my favorite franchises of all time, but unlike most people, I wasn't introduced to it by the main series of games. No, I was introduced by the anime, but more so than that, Pokemon Colosseum for the Nintendo GameCube. Pokemon Colosseum isn't a game that has aged well at all, but the concept allows for so much potential. You play as more of an anti-hero for the first time in the series, and you have to steal shadow Pokemon back from an evil organization called Cypher. Also Mirror B. Pokemon Colosseum got a sequel a few years later called Pokemon XD, and the gameplay and graphics were polished up wonderfully. Cypher returns, and you, once again, have to steal back all of the shadow Pokemon. XD takes a much more lighthearted tone than Colosseum, but the difficulty balancing is significantly more fair, and it still has Mirror B. Pokemon XD left off on a cliffhanger, with one of Cypher's leaders escaping and saying that he plans to continue Cypher's plans. Since then, we haven't heard anything about the Ore region or its story. Until Pokemon Go. Yeah, for some reason Pokemon Go was the game where they finally decided to acknowledge Pokemon Colosseum and XD again. You can catch Shadow Pokemon in Pokemon Go. I don't know if this is the Pokemon Company and Niantic foreshadowing that there are plans for a sequel, a la Meltan foreshadowing a new Pokemon in Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, or if it's just a nod to these mostly forgotten spin-offs, but a girl can dream. Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2 was a disappointing sequel. The Force Unleashed 1 isn't a great game by any means, but it's one of the most beloved Star Wars titles ever released. The Force Unleashed 2 saw The Force Unleashed 1's legacy and decided, okay, but what if we make the story be about Starkiller's clone forgetting literally everything he cared about except for the girl who he was stuck in a forced romance with at the very end of the first game? Force Unleashed 2 didn't sit well with fans, and I understand why. However, the ending set up a sequel perfectly. Darth Vader gets captured and imprisoned on Dantooine, and then we see Boba Fett's ship following Starkiller and Juno, and that's where that story ends. Why? Apparently there were plans for a third game, but they were cancelled. Why? It's because LucasArts died. I know a new sequel isn't likely because the first two games are no longer canon, but I would really appreciate some closure on how Vader escaped and what happens to Starkiller and Juno. Also, if you're watching this and you're a Star Wars fan, I don't want to hear anything about Rian Johnson or Disney. They aren't related to this at all, and it's so annoying when people bring that stuff up as if they think they're entitled to something. I feel like I'm the only person in the world who has ever and will ever say Sonic Forces is my favorite Sonic game. Like, yeah, Generations is alright, but dude, Sonic Forces has the perfect Sonic plot. Dr. Eggman succeeding and taking over the world, and Sonic and friends leading a super cheesy resistance against him. That's hilarious. People who say the plot isn't taken seriously enough or whatever are really just begging for another Shadow the Hedgehog. Sonic Forces sets up its plot perfectly and keeps it going throughout the majority of the game. However, I do have one complaint. Infinite. This guy. I voiced this guy.
That day, I finally swore off gaming.
But how am I supposed to care about this guy? Who is he? He got roundhouse kicked and then decided he was going to take over the world. Okay, and I'm fine with his lackluster backstory, but when you defeat him, he just disappears. That isn't a good way to close Infinite's character. I want to at least see him take off the mask, whether he's redeemed as a character or not. Sonic Forces 2 would be a perfect way to expand on the rebuilding that would have to take place after the first game, as well as a way to give some closure to Infinite as a character. His last line was, "I can still fight," so I want to see him make good on that. I want to see him show the world what he can do. And I want better avatar customization. It's fine as is, but I want more freedom, but mostly the Infinite thing. But seriously, give me better customization for my cat lady. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is my favorite game of all time, and Xenoblade Chronicles 1's HD remaster is the only game that has made me cry upon being revealed. I know a lot of people want a sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles X, but I've never owned a Wii U, so I have no way of really caring about that. I just want a Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I don't care if it's completely disconnected from the first two, just give me more Xenoblade, Nintendo. The Wii Sports games are awesome. Other than Wii Sports Club, we don't talk about that one. Why not give us a new one for the Switch? I don't really have much to say about this one, I just feel like even a remake of Resort would suffice, but I want some official Wii Sports styled games for the Switch instead of cheap shovelware knockoffs.
Sorry, Boris.
I understand. But then, what will you do?
I've got my own war to fight.
What the heck was that ending? Yeah, Kojima and Platinum Games left this fantastic hack and slash game on a cliffhanger, and now that Konami has essentially left Metal Gear Solid to rot, it seems incredibly unlikely that we'll ever get Metal Gear Rising 2, but Jesus Christ, this cliffhanger has been killing me ever since I beat the first game 4 or 5 years ago. This is the same deal as Wii Sports Resort. I'd be equally as happy with a port as I would be with a sequel. I personally didn't have any issues with the game's controls on 3DS, but the armies of people with arthritis because of this game would disagree. This game is such an awesome experience though, and I feel like everybody should get to play it without being subjected to broken bones in their hands. The writing is phenomenal, the gameplay is phenomenal in concept, and the game even had an awesome multiplayer mode. Now, Hades said after the credits that we're probably not getting a sequel for another 25 years, but I feel like at the very least, this game could be ported to Switch with the right Joy-Con's joystick being used to move the reticle instead of the touchscreen. And that would also make it a lot easier for left-handed people. Shovel Knight is one of the best indie games ever made. That's probably said all the time, but I feel like there's just some things like that that cannot be overstated. All of the extra campaigns that have come out since Shovel of Hope have been equally as high quality, and I can't wait for King of Cards and Showdown. I'm also kinda curious about that spin-off looking game they announced, but I really want a sequel to Shovel of Hope. Just imagine what they could do with a game where you play as Shovel Knight and Shield Knight together. Imagine how awesome a co-op mode like that could be. Either way, I'm happy with just the first game. Yacht Club made sure that Shovel Knight is endlessly replayable, and that's good enough for me. Heck, you can even make all the characters swap genders now. I can play as Girl Shovel Knight, and that's all that really matters. Okay, so it turns out you can't make sequels to YouTube channels. My solution is to just make a sequel to the business partnerships video. Here's my idea. Sole proprietorship. In 2007, Nintendo released their most successful console, the Wii. They'd completely cornered the casual market with the thing, and the Wii owed a lot of that to the game that came packaged with it, Wii Sports. Yes, that one tennis game Grandpa loves. Wii Sports was essentially a collection of 5 tech demos and a fantastic alternative to going to a bowling alley because who wants all that pesky human interaction? The game is often cited as one of the best-selling games of all time because of the fact that it was packed in with the Wii throughout the majority of its lifespan. Then they remade it for the Wii U, where you have to rent all the different sports until they released all 5 of them on a disc. And they forced you to use the gamepad.
This game blows!
But we're not talking about Wii Sports Club here, we're talking about the first Wii Sports. Wii Sports was developed by Nintendo EAD in 2006. It was very wisely packed in with the Wii console with a huge focus being put on its motion controls. It made the Wii seem less difficult to understand to babies and boomers alike, and is usually cited as being one of the most major contributing factors to the console's success, being packed in alongside the system, as I said, before eventually being packed in alongside its sequel, Wii Sports Resort. Yeah, Nintendo really relied on this game to sell consoles for over half a decade, and shockingly enough, that really worked out. The Wii was the most successful console out of its generation. I decided to take a look at this because I was reminiscing about the first time my family got a Wii. We hooked up the system, turned it on, went to the disc channel, made Mii's, went back to the disc channel, and booted up Wii Sports. We played bowling for an hour, and then went back to whatever we were doing before. But I want to re-experience that feeling. Alone. Because I don't want to play Wii Sports with my mom and all my siblings are gone. Huh. Sounds kinda depressing when you put it that way. god, what I would give for that song to play whenever I do anything. By far one of the Wii's most memorable songs, and it's on a collection of tech demos. Basically everybody's reaction upon booting up the game for the first time was, wait just a second, I'm the hand! So upon reaching the menu we have 5 options of sports: tennis, baseball, bowling, midlife crisis, and boxing. Let's just go through each of them in order. Tennis! The only sport that doesn't make me want to violently throw up upon being asked to participate other than, like, badminton. Am I a boom? So I start up a game and I have the option to be both people on my side of the net or be with a random CPU-controlled me, and yeah, I don't want to do all the work. I get paired up with Shouta, and I can only assume that's actually his job description. We're up against some no-name and a guy named Matt. This guy looks like he's committed multiple murders and I'm here for it. So for some reason I remember being able to just shake the Wii remote like a maniac and winning automatically. Yeah, that's not how that works. I lost pretty badly in the first game. Upon rematching, I did better, and the game went on for like 100 too many serves. Every time Shouta served the ball, Matt was on it. Long story short, Shouta and I lost yet again. I can't blame my boy Shouta though. This was all Matt's fault, and I will get my revenge. The next sport is baseball, and I'm paired up with my mom, brother, stepdad, and a bunch of random me's I don't know anything about against... well, let's just call him Team Matt. There's not much to say about baseball. It's almost entirely based on timing, and the way you do everything is literally just by shaking the Wii remote. The NPCs seem to be really bad at hitting the ball, and for some reason I can never get anything other than fastballs, which I feel like is probably cheating. Nobody on my team does very well at batting except my mom, who manages to get a home run. Unfortunately, we do even worse when pitching and end up losing to Team Matt. I'm hating this guy more and more every second. He's never letting me win at anything, and I really just wish I could punch him. Next is bowling, and this is basically everybody's favorite or second favorite sport in the collection. You shift your position using the D-pad on the Wii remote, and you roll the ball by holding the B button and swinging the Wii remote like a bowling ball. This game is probably the best bowling game ever made, and god, I suck at it. I didn't know you could shift your position when I played my first game, so I thought you shifted the ball's direction by tilting the Wii remote. Yeah, that didn't work out. On my second game, I still didn't do great, but at least I got a double strike at the end. But I can't go against Matt in this one. This game is nothing for me when I'm not playing with other people, and as I said before, I want to play this alone. Golf! It's like Mario Golf, but without all that pesky fun and entertainment. I can't be bothered to learn how this game works. This is the only sport I recorded where I didn't bother to finish a single game. I'm not 23 yet. I have 5 years to go until I reach boomer age. Finally, we have boxing. This is the favorite of a lot of people, and I see why. It's definitely the most fleshed out and exhausting of the sports on the collection. This is the only game that uses both the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, and it uses both of them to great effect. You move the Wii Remote and Nunchuck over your face to block, you move them both to the side to dodge, and you thrust them forward in different directions to throw punches. You can hit Nintendo characters in the dick in an official Nintendo product. This is amazing. Rumor has it that Matt is considered a champion of boxing. If I can make my way to him and defeat him here, he'll be too ashamed to ever show himself again. I've defeated so many. I even punched my main man Shouta in the face several times, but no price is too high to crush Matt's spirit. Time to start facing the pros. I can't do it. I beat pro fighters, but I don't do it fast enough and keep getting knocked back down in rank. Is it truly hopeless? Is Matt from Wii Sports just that undefeatable to the point where I can't even defeat these low-level goons to face him in the first place? Yes, he is. In Wii Sports, joke's on you, Matt. I have the power of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Behold my ultimate power, hitting you in the face with a fucking massive iron ball. So this is my announcement that I'm going to be making more WinterStar episodes. I really like making these kinds of videos, but I wish I had worked a little harder on them, because the only video out of these ones that I really worked hard on at all was the Wii Sports one, which I'm still very proud of, but I want to make more high quality videos like this because these are actually really fun to make. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching.